Tarps Off MMA. I'm gonna try and do my Chris Mancuso. Tarps Off MMA, boys. We're getting it. We're here. We're drinking some Pink Whitney. I don't have a Pink Whitney. I just finished my Pink Whitney, boys. You know, with my Mike's Hard Lemonade. How's it going, boys?
Good, man. Good.
As usual, Chris isn't here today. It's he has some business to take care of, some good business according to Jack. So hopefully it all works out for you guys. Terry Tam as usual with Adam Caplan from Unanimous Decision and Jack Gotsell, Tarps Off Sports / Tarps Off MMA / blogging about High C Orange at McDonald's.
I actually didn't write that one.
Oh, you didn't write that one? Okay, I thought you did. That's pretty funny. I never had a High C Orange. I don't even know what it is.
It's really good, actually. Germano loves it. So
fucking Germano, man. Only
what is it, like Sunny Delight?
Yeah, it's kind of like a Sunny D almost. It's like a juice.
It's like a Fanta, I guess.
Yeah, people were screaming for McDonald's to bring it back, so they did it, and people are pumped. They're celebrating in the streets.
I love it, man. I love it. We had a big week this week, a big week of news, and the biggest news we had this week was Bellator. Bellator announcing that they're going to be with Showtime now. Fight's going to be on April 2nd and April 9th. I think that's what they said. We're going to start a Grand Prix.
April 2nd, April 9th, and the 16th are the 3 dates. Yep, for the light heavyweight Grand Prix and the featherweight Grand Prix.
So who's going to be on that one? Who's going to be on the light heavyweight Grand Prix?
Oh, you got Corey Anderson. He's a former UFC fighter in there. You got Romero versus Anthony Rumble Johnson. You got Leonardo the Dragon Machida versus Ryan Bader. It's you got the Bellator champion there, Nemco. Is that?
Yeah. Vadim Nemkov versus former light heavyweight champion Phil Davis.
Yes.
Big baby, not big baby.
And that's a rematch too.
Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah, they already fought once.
Absolutely.
Who's Big Baby Davis? Oh, he is a basketball player.
Oh, and Bader Machida fought too. That's also a rematch. They fought in the UFC though.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
They're bringing that to Bellator.
That's actually a pretty sick Grand Prix if you think about it. The UFC should. The thing about the UFC is they'll never adopt something that somebody else does. Well, they'll never say that they're doing it anyway. So I mean, it would be good for us to see like a lightweight tournament style, but Bellator does it right when it comes to these things.
My favorite thing about the Bellator Grand Prix is the title can change hands in the middle of the Grand Prix. So if like the champion loses in the first round, the title moves on and the guy that beat him moves along with it, which I think is awesome.
I like that also. I was never really a fan when the tournament, the champion rather, could go through the tournament, get eliminated, but then he has to fight the winner of the tournament down the line. Kind of doesn't make sense coming off of a loss. And then also, I don't think we're going to talk about it today, but PFL is announcing their tournaments also. So UFC is actually kind of left in the dark in the sense of not getting on the tournament train. And to quote what Jack said, it's the return of Strikeforce. So people are pumped about that. And hey, man, when Strikeforce disbanded and they brought some fighters over to the UFC, dude, Strikeforce went on a fucking long winning streak before the
UFC bought them out, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm a fan of like this whole tournament. I think it keeps everybody more engaged, but I think that people are already so engaged in the UFC and they already love the product, and it's like they don't need that stuff to pay attention. But I think with Bellator, it's like they take advantage of the situation, be like, let's throw all our big guns into this tournament. Showtime's giving us a bunch of money to do this. Let's fucking do it right. So does that mean they're off DAZN? I guess they're off the zone.
Yeah. They're just on Showtime now, and
So
I don't know
I
if a
gotta buy
tournament
Showtime.
could work at this point in the UFC. It's like, I don't know if that would fit well with like the fans and the fighters themselves.
Too many call outs. Yeah. Everybody's calling. It's the mic at the end of every fight. The guy, the announcer always asks, "So who do you have next?" Like it's up to the fighter who he has next. It's turning into kind of like a lesser version of boxing was back in the day, and it's to the point now where it's like we're Bellator. Nobody's really calling anybody out, like unless they know that person's next. Like if if Mousasi wants to call out, he'll probably, if he wins his next fight, he'll probably call out Lovato, it'd be like, listen, I want another chance, like something like that.
Yeah.
But they don't do that in Bellator. The only guys that call people out in Bellator is Dylan Dennis, and he calls somebody out, and he never calls anybody out in Bellator. It's always in the UFC.
He calls out anybody that he actually can't fight. So legally, that's another discussion. One thing that I wanted to ask you guys is do you think that the point of the tournaments it does have a downfall in the sense that it could kill contenders quickly? Like if Romero gets starched in the first round versus Rumble, when they could have put him in there with a couple of other lower tier guys to kind of rebuild that brand, don't you find it might kill, one of Rumble or Romero off?
That's a good point, actually. I mean, I think that Rumble, it's a high possibility that Rumble just annihilates Romero. I mean, Romero hasn't looked great in his last 3 fights. Let's be realistic. The guy's 48 or whatever the fuck he is. Legally, I think it's his paper says 40, but like he's actually like 50. You know what I mean? Like that's just what it is. Like that whole thing from that movie, I Am 12.
Yeah, I think Adam said this as well. So the Corey Anderson, who's he fighting again? It's
Yugoslav. He's 18-1, I believe, off of ACA, a Russian promotion. He could win.
I would like. He very much could win. I'd like to see those two guys like fight each other, like Rumble either fight one of those two guys and Romero fight one of those two guys, and maybe meet in the second round and then maybe do it right off the bat because of what you're saying. One of these guys could get absolutely torched in that fight, and then they're done.
Yeah, it kills off a contender. And, we do know Bellator or Scott Coker, rather's recipes. And one of those recipes are, let's take the biggest names that we have in North America and put them in there. They do a great job building superstars, but they value those former UFC guys very, very highly. Kind of unlike the UFC does, except for Michael Chandler.
Yeah, I guess at that point, I mean, Michael Chandler, he's like, he comes in and he's known as like, okay, well, you're not good enough yet. And then he finally shows everybody that he's good enough. And that's what we're going to see now in Bellator is that are these guys actually up to the level of guys that fought in UFC? Like Bader, I think has like all the pressures on Bader for this tournament, every single one, because he's fighting everybody now, like he has to like really go through everybody. And if he kind of takes a misstep, it's there because everybody's waiting to hate on Bader. Everybody's waiting to hit on it. So far, we can't say anything. He's a two division champ. We can't say much about Bader because he's 2 division champ. But everybody's waiting. If he loses, he was garbage. He was never that good. Like that's what we're waiting for. We got sense. Bader and Machida. We got Anderson and I'm not even going to try and pronounce his last name. Yagshimuradov. Is that did I nail it or what? Romero and Rumble, and then you have Phil Davis and Nemkov.
Yeah. I think Nemkov wins that one. Yep. I think Rumble Johnson comes out of that. I think Corey Anderson pulls it out, but that's the closest one to call. And then I think Bader wins his.
So now Bader, let's say he loses to Machida. Okay, he loses to Machida. Machida has the belt, right?
No. Nemkov is the light heavyweight champ.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, it's true.
Champ.
So let's say Nemkov loses to Bader, to Davis. Davis has the belt. Davis ends up fighting, let's say, Romero. Romero beats him. Romero has the belt.
Yes.
Then Romero. So what if, let's say, then Romero is supposed to fight the winner of this side? Like, let's say one of those guys gets injured. Do we slot in Nemkov, or is there a replacement list? Is there a wait list? How does it work? Is it the guy that you just fought? How does it work? That's what I've always wondered with these tournaments.
That hasn't been brought up yet in terms of the alternates. However, when I am looking at the landscape of the light heavyweight division, there's only one name that is missing, and that's Liam McGeary, former light heavyweight Bellator champ. Besides McGeary, I would rather somebody who lost get brought back into the tournament, because otherwise, or, a Mousasi. I got Mousasi, but Mousasi is an alternate. Give me a break here. This guy should have been in the tournament. So
these guys are welterweights though, right?
Mousasi's landscape. What welterweight? Mousasi's a middleweight and a 205.
A middleweight. Sorry, my mistake, guys.
So, it's difficult to see how that landscape turns out. I'd like to see a loser get bought back into the tournament, but I'm not Scott Coker.
Wasn't Liam McGeary the champ at 70? At one point, like 4 or 5 years ago? No. I feel like he fought at 70.
He's so big. There's no way.
He's a tall guy, I know, and he's got that fucked up tooth. Yeah. he's a weird looking motherfucker, but he's good.
Guy remembers how his teeth are, but doesn't remember what weight class he's in.
I think he fought at 70. I really think he did. I could be wrong with this. We'll check.
Rumble fought at 170.
Rumble fought everywhere. Fuck. Rumble fought at 145 probably. So, I mean, I'm pumped, man. I can't wait. It's going to give me a reason to watch Bellator. I think that I always forget that they're on. They put their fights on Thursdays and Fridays. You forget they're on.
Well, now they're all going to be on Fridays.
On Friday. That's perfect. And
they also, they had that issue when they were putting on their big Dublin cards that it was, it wasn't live. They would play it afterwards, and everyone's on social media, so we already know the results, and it loses that spark. You know I have a hard time watching a fight sometimes when I know the results. So now that it's going to be live, I think that that's great. One thing I wanted to ask you guys is, do you think that one of their ploys working with Showtime is to bring boxing fans into it for eyes on it?
Yeah, Showtime does their boxing on Saturdays. They're going to do the MMA on Fridays. I think they're definitely trying to mix together those audiences for sure.
I think it's genius to not even think about going on Saturdays. I think that's just a waste of time because you're always going to be looking at UFC's events to see if you're going to overlap. And that looks like the UFC are putting on events every weekend from now until fucking October. You know what I mean? So it's going to be hard for them to schedule. Fridays is perfect. And I think Fridays is good for a lot of people. I tune in for sure on a Friday night to watch. Like if you have nothing else to watch on TV, why not? If the girl's down to watch it, then we will watch it. That's pretty much how it works for me. UFC 258 though, this weekend. Huge. We got
that's a really good card.
It's actually it's an underrated card. It's underrated how stacked it is. And we look at it and everybody's like, okay, Usman Burns, that's like the big one. But I want to start at the bottom. I want to start Jim Miller, Bobby Green. I mean, before the show started, at Jack, you were talking about Bobby Green losing some close decisions. Jim Miller, maybe he's losing out. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of guys on this card that if they lose, they'll probably be out. And I think Jim Miller is one of those guys, regardless of how many performance of the night bonuses he's had in his career.
Yeah, I think Jim Miller's path to win is obvious. I don't think he gets it done. I think it's going to be too challenging to do because of Bobby Green's takedown defense. But that's going to be Jim Miller's path because he's not going to beat Bobby Green standing up. And Bobby Green is very, very difficult to take down. But that's going to be the only way Jim Miller can get it done.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I got to agree with Jack there. I mean, obviously Jim Miller does have a strong jiu-jitsu game, but Bobby Green is long and he's strong, pause. So it's going to be difficult for him to go in there and try to implement that game plan. And, like Jack said, Bobby Green has lost some close fights. He's also an unorthodox fighter. He's talking to his opponents constantly throughout the whole matchup, and he is a force to be reckoned with on the feet. He is kind of one of those guys that I really thought his trajectory in the sport would have gotten a lot higher, especially after he wins fights or loses them. He talks about the kids. He talks about, the struggles of growing up and all of these things. He is trying to, in a way, preach and set his standard as a role model. And,
very positive person for sure.
He doesn't get that push. He doesn't get that push.
He also had that moment with his coach where he's like, this guy raised me, like it was back and forth when it was the whole George Floyd thing. And he's like, there's no race problems here. It's like, you got to love the person next to you kind of thing. So he's like a very positive person. And, we appreciate a kind of guy like that. And everybody roots for Bobby Green. I don't think we've ever heard anybody because he's exciting to watch and he's a good guy. He's not a piece of shit, and Jim Miller is kind of the same way. Exciting guy to watch. And, he's well respected. So I'm super pumped for this fight. I'm going to give it to Bobby Green for the reasons that Jack said. I think Bobby Green's going to be able to stop that takedown. And I don't think he's going to let himself get tapped out by a guy like Jim Miller. Jim Miller's not a punching guy. His striking isn't top of the line. I think Bobby Green is going to be able to squeak out like a 3-round decision. He may be like a split decision. He might get taken down in like the second round of the first round, but I think he'll win 2 out of the 3 for sure.
It does worry me, though, when it goes into the judges' hands, which I think this one will. I think it will go to decision because you've seen Green get some bad decisions from the judges in fights where he's won that they've taken away from him. But I also don't think he finishes Jim Miller. So,
yeah,
that's a good point.
I don't think he finishes Jim Miller either. And I also think that one of the downfalls with Bobby Green is that he plays with his food too much talking, too many feints, etc. Feints are never a bad thing, but too much playing with the food. I'm just hoping not to see Jim Miller get Frankie Edgar, because he has been in the game a long time, but I don't think Jim has taken nearly as much damage as a guy like Frankie.
That's a good point. Well, the thing is, Frankie's taking like those devastating shots where Jim Miller's probably taken more damage. Actually, Frankie Edgar's been in some wars, man. He's been in some real wars. And I think last week, it was sad to see. I mean, we can talk about it, but Sandhagen kneeing Frankie Edgar and it was really sad to watch.
Yeah, and then he had the Sandhagen had that awesome interview where he really called out TJ Dillashaw, calling him a cheater and saying that he took the easy road using some of the worst performance enhancing drugs. And he says that TJ Dillashaw doesn't want to fight him. He's afraid that he's going to skip the line and get that title shot before him.
He's right, though.
They trained together. In Sandhagen said, I've been humble before, but to be honest, I got the better of TJ Dillashaw in a lot of those sparring sessions. So
it's actually funny you mentioned that because I wanted to talk to you guys about it, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it a bit more in the main event. But when DC talked about it with Harry Helwani this week, he said, I know, like, they know that they can beat the other person if they've trained with them before. So he's like, Rashad knew that he was going to lose to John Jones. He's like, I knew I would lose to Cain Velasquez. That's what DC said. And he's like, that's why we basically never did it. And that was a reason why Rashad lost, is because he lost the fight before he even got in there, because he knew he was going to lose to John Jones. And I think we might be having that situation now with Usman and Burns. I don't think so, but it's funny you say that about Sandhagen having the advantage against Dillashaw. It's funny you say that, because the same thing happened with Cody. I mean, he was said he can beat him, and then he KO'd him, he sucker punched him, and then he got KO'd by TJ. I mean, so these guys know they know the advantages that they have against certain fighters. So it's interesting to see that. I would actually love to see a TJ Sandhagen for like a contender spot, because TJ is gonna get fast forwarded to the championship, 100%.
Oh, I agree.
On the prelims, actually, I skipped right over it. We got Diego Lima and Bilal Muhammad. You guys want to talk about that? Diego Lima, big nose, lovely guy, sick fighter on the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, Adam, this was like your fight of the night, so why don't you lead us off here?
I think it's going to be the fight of the night. I mean, look, Diego Lima does have a strong ground game, but at the same time, let's be honest, he's got a stronger Muay Thai game. You know, he is the brother of Douglas Lima, who's a Muay Thai phenom, who's chewed up a lot of legs in Bellator. And although I don't think he's as cerebral as Douglas Lima, you know, he definitely is an experienced veteran who's going to go in there. But Bilal Muhammad is fucking fearless. He goes in there, guns a-blazing. Every single fight, somebody's bloodied up. A flurry of strikes constantly. Works from bell to bell. All 3 rounds, this fight is going to be probably action-packed. And the only way that I see this fight not being action-packed is if it ends quickly. Besides that, I think that this is a shoo-in for fight of the night. Muhammad is definitely a brawler. Another guy who brings a lot of eyes on the sport in the prelims. You know, this is somebody that when you look at the card, you're like, all right, he's on the card. And then next thing you know, without a doubt, he's always on ESPN as a highlight reel. I'm going with this as fight of the night.
You know what? I'm going to agree with you, but I don't think it's going to end quickly. I think it'll be just a brawl of a 3-round fight. Yeah.
Agreed.
See, I guess I disagree with you guys a little bit there, because I am worried about Lima's chin. We've seen him get knocked out recently. I'm worried about that with him fighting Muhammad, because he is such a good brawler and a good striker. Also, I think he's going to be able to take Lima down at will. I know Lima's got a good ground game, but there's levels to this shit. Yeah. And I think Muhammad's just better.
That'll be a good fucking fight, man. I got that for fight of the night guaranteed.
Yeah, I do think that one could be a fight of the night caliber, but it's a double-edged sword. It might be action-packed. It could be Bilal Muhammad throwing him around the ring for 3 rounds, because I think he will be able to.
Yeah, I think so too. Another fight on the prelims, actually, I don't know if you guys are really aware of Adolfo Vieira and how good of a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter he was. And he was like he killed everybody for years for years. And now he's fighting Anthony Hernandez, which is a sick fight too.
4-time champion, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. There's a picture of him, if you want to talk about the wrong steroids. If there's a picture of him on Jiu-Jitsu magazine, I used to subscribe to it, and it's him with like celebrating he won the world championships, and his gi is open and there's no shirt, and he's fucking just ripped to shreds, the guy, man.
Like God drew him with a pencil.
Almost, man. The guy is a beast, and he looks exactly the same now. So I'm gonna say maybe he wasn't on the sauce back then. But jiu-jitsu is rampant. Steroids is rampant in jiu-jitsu. So I'm looking forward to that fight. That's the main event. That's the main event of the prelims. Let's continue with the main card. Kelvin Gastelum, Ian Heinisch. I think this is lose and you're out, win and you get a last chance. Last air bubble. I think both these guys. Ian Heinisch is coming off a win. Before that, he has 2 losses. You know, I think he's the type of guy where he's on the bubble. He has like a lot of potential. Gastelum just hasn't shown. I think he gets paid way too much for what he's been performing as.
It's so interesting with Gastelum, because you saw him fight Adesanya, and he gave him one of Adesanya's toughest fights. It was an absolute war. But ever since Gastelum lost that fight, it's like he's been a completely changed man, a changed fighter, and I think he's lost 3 in a row since then. And I'm worried that like maybe he does get upset by the underdog here, because maybe he's just broken. Maybe he does need a change of scenery. Maybe he needs to go over to Bellator and try a new promotion and find what clicks again, because it just seems like he's broken right now.
Yeah, I think so too.
I definitely think the confidence is an issue, which is surprising, though. I mean, you got to think about it. He was an undersized middleweight inside of the Ultimate Fighter, beat Uriah Hall in the finals, which everybody thought he was going to get highlight reeled. So, and then you think about it, and he's working with Henry Cejudo in his camp. They went over to Antigua with Uncle Mike Tyson. They did the Toad together. They did all of these transcendent experiences that you'd think would put him on the path to be an unbeatable fighter. And it's just simply not happening. He went in there in his last fight against Jack the Joker Hermanson, got leg locked. It was a cup of coffee fight. It was about 5 seconds long. I just got to agree with you guys. I don't think the confidence is there. And I think maybe some of that has to do with the setting as well. I think that perhaps going to Bellator will kind of ease that pressure and maybe make him feel a lot better about himself. And I do think that this is one of those fights where I wouldn't be surprised if Kelvin gets cut. And it's just crazy because this is a guy who won the Ultimate Fighter undersized, like I just said, knocks out Michael Bisping in China, and then he just goes in there and he shits the bed against Hermanson. It's just a damn shame.
Yeah, I was a Gastelum guy when he came out of the Ultimate Fighter. I mean, he was the last pick. Like everybody knew the storyline there, right? He was the last pick of the team. And who was the coaches that year? Actually, it's a good question.
Chael Sonnen and John Jones. And
there you go.
That
I pictured the red and the blue.
That was John Jones's team. And then Gastelum and Uriah Hall were in the black uniforms. And, again, it's like you look at Kelvin Gastelum, he was a 5'9", 5'10", 185 pounder. It's like, dude, the average American, the average Canadian who's about that size and that weight, they're like, wow, what an inspiration that is. And, I just think that, like, man, these guys couldn't carry it. He's
also changed camps a lot. I mean, he was with Eddie Bravo at one point, and now it looks like he's at Sanford. So like, there's
that Black House as well.
At Black House at one point. Yeah.
Another thing too sorry, Terry. Another thing also is dude, he got popped for marijuana like 2 times. Got put on the shelf, and you shrug like that, dude. The guy went on the air and said, like, my mom didn't even know I smoked weed and I got completely sold out by the MMA media. Like, those are real life discrepancies.
That's fucked up. That his mom didn't know he smoked weed, and then she finds out online.
Listen, a very tight-knit, loving Mexican mother, it's almost like a Jewish mother. You don't want to cross that, baby. So, I could, it's like, I don't know, like Kelvin Gastelum's like a grown man, but like, I just can't shake the image of still looking at him as a young boy.
So you think he wins or loses?
I'm still going with Kelvin Gastelum. That's for sure.
I'm picking him too. I'm picking him, but if he doesn't win, it honestly might be better for him in the long run because he needs to fix something. I think a switch to Bellator would rejuvenate him and wake him up a little bit. Maybe Adam's onto something. Maybe he's not a man yet. Maybe he's still a young boy, and maybe he does need to go over to Bellator and grow up.
I don't know what his contract is. I'm actually Googling it right now, but he might not be worth what they're paying him. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the way I see it now. And especially we're getting closer to March, where Adam and I have spoken about this before, where the cuts are coming. And if you make too much money and you're not giving me W's or getting me views, then you're going to be out. And I think the UFC's been very shrewd when it comes to this, and they've cut big guys. Anthony Pettis can say that it was amicable, but they told him you were gone. But because he was such a big name in the UFC, they allowed him to release a statement saying that he's going to leave. Like, there's all these things. So I think he'll win this fight. It'll be a boring 3-round fight. I don't think Heinisch is going to be able to do much against him. Gastelum's experience at this point, I think, is a lot higher than Heinisch is. So I'm going with Gastelum on this one, just because of what I've seen, just the eye test. I've only seen Gastelum do well in situations like this where it's not the top 5. Heinisch being a number 15 ranked, like, what does that tell me about him? So I think I'm going to go Gastelum here. But
if he wins, is he safe from cuts?
I think whoever wins this fight is safe. Whoever loses is done. Like, I think they both know it. So it's a potential of a crazy fight, but I just don't see it happening. I don't see it happening at all. Macy Barber, Alexa Grasso. This is the co-main. Jack, I know you're pumped about this one.
Yeah, I am pumped about this one. I think Grasso is going to ultimately end. It's the 125-pound division, I believe, and I think she's going to end up in that top 10. Barber is a super difficult opponent. However, she is coming off of a devastating loss. She did tear her ACL in that loss, so I'm a little skeptical on how she's going to look in there coming back from such a brutal injury and such a heartbreaking loss for her. And Grasso's not the type of fighter you want to come back against a loss like that from, because she is just so good on the ground, and her striking has improved every single fight she's been in. I imagine it's going to look even better on Saturday. She seems like a student of the game. She seems dedicated. Always looks like she's willing to learn, because her striking has gone from like 0 to 100 in her time in the UFC octagon. So I'm picking Grasso, and I think we'll see her in the top 10, possibly even top 5 before the year's done.
Well, she's 500 in her last 6 fights. I mean, she's lost to like some big names here. Carla Esparza, Cookie Monster. I mean, she was the champ at one point. She was the first champ at that division. Tatiana Suarez, who, she was sick in the UFC Ultimate Fighter beast as well. She lost to Felice Herrig, who was another Ultimate Fighter legend. And I think that it's, she beat Randa Marcos, who's a brawler. She beat Karolina Kovacevic. We all know Karolina.
Jeez, she went through death row right there.
Yeah. Like she's fought some tough people, and I think that octagon time is huge. They're all decisions except for one, and it was in the first round when she lost Tatiana Suarez. So she's got her octagon time in, man. I think that this is the time where if she wins this, she's close to getting a title shot. And Macy Barber is a good name to have on your resume, because she is a 22-year-old savage. She's a murderer, the girl. She's unbelievable.
Is this the classic case of the UFC trying to throw Macy Barber in there with the upper echelon to see what she's made of? Or is this a classic case of the women's division where, because it's a smaller roster, unfortunately, the best got to fight the best a lot earlier than we expected?
I think that it's it's all relative, because the UFC, because the women's division is so small. To your point, Adam, it's so small that they have to put the best people together. And I think that Macy Barber, 22 years old, are like, listen, if she loses this fight, she's gonna be our star. Like, they see her as the star. She's only 8-1, and she's a co-maining in a main event, like a pay-per-view event, not just a fight night. She's co-maining it, so they want to push her. Alexa Grasso, they want to push her in Mexico. Like, she can be the next Mexican superstar, so like it's one or the other. But I think they see Macy Barber, 22 years old. If she loses this fight, it's okay. We're going to be able to push her to get to that title shot, and she'll be a star for the next 10 years.
Sounds like
I don't think
win-win scenario.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, so I don't think the UFC has anything to lose here.
Yeah, and I think I watched the embeddeds too, and I see Alexa Grasso talking like a lot of respect about Macy Barber too. She's not going to be, and I find that it's funny with the girls too, is that especially the girls from like Brazil or Mexico, they come from other countries, they're always full of smiles and they're full of respect for the other girls, and it's great. But at the end of the day, they're going to go in there, they're going to kill them. But I think that they know the opportunity that they have, and I think that they're fortunate for the opportunity that they're being put on this stage now to gain a bunch of more followers and gain some recognition, and I think that's huge. I'm gonna go Alexa Grasso here. I think that Macy Barber is like, she's just a notch below. I do think that, and to Jack's point, I think coming off the injury might kill her a bit.
Yeah,
it's gonna be tough. So
I like Alexa Grasso in that fight as well.
Yeah. So main event, Usman Burns. I don't know. I don't know anybody. Nobody's gonna ever convince me that Burns is gonna win this fight. Nobody. You tell me, look at me and tell me, oh, he did so well against this guy. Fuck that, he didn't. He is not winning this fight. Usman is a different level.
So let me ask you a question before we even start. You brought up TJ Dillashaw before, and you said guys know when they've trained with each other in the training room if they have their number up on somebody. I'm looking at Usman. I'm looking at Gilbert Burns. Both of them were training at, the Black Zillions that now is Sanford MMA. Usman is now training in Denver, Colorado with the likes of Trevor Whitman, Gaethje, Team Elevation, Eddie Alvarez. Why did that happen? Why did Kamaru Usman leave? I guarantee you it's not because Gilbert Burns starched him in training, but do you think that Usman knew in hindsight that he looked around the room and was going to fight some of these guys and said like, well, I got to kind of, check myself and get out of here?
So the feeling that I get from reading and seeing all the interviews is that Usman kind of felt that the team was like kind of telling Burns behind the scenes, like, yeah, you can beat that guy. Like, you can be the champ while they had the champ. So I think Usman took that as a disrespect. Like, listen, I'm the fucking champion in this room. Like, he needs to respect me. So you guys can't respect me. I'm out. I'm going to go to Trevor Whitman, who is the best striking coach in MMA to me. I mean, I think that, like, when I hear him, I'm like
MMA boxing.
MMA boxing. Exactly. Yeah. I think that guy is like leaps and bounds ahead of everybody. When he does his little analysis during the fights, I'm tuned in, man. I'm listening to everything he's saying. He nails it. He's on point. And look what he did to Gaethje. Look what he's done for Gaethje. Sorry, the guy's hands are unbelievable. So I think that's going to benefit Usman a lot, because we saw him against the Colby fight get tagged a bit and drop his hands and be sloppy boxing. I think that with Whitman, it's going to help him a lot. So Usman made the right decision leaving, and I think that it helped Burns too, because now they can focus a lot more on Burns, where fighting over there, he's going to get the the hands-on, all that stuff. So I think it benefited both guys. I don't think Usman is worried about Burns in any way, and he shouldn't be.
And I had a shit-eating grin on my face when you were talking about the TJ Dillashaw training earlier, because I got on my notes right here that I actually got cold feet. So if you listen to the other episodes, I was pretty high on Gilbert Burns. But shit gets real when you log on to mybookie.com and it's fight week, and or mybookie.ag. And I couldn't put money on Gilbert Burns with good confidence, because honestly, they did train together. I think that benefits Usman more than that benefits Burns, because of just how he's a more experienced in the octagon, and he's just a more well-rounded fighter. And the other thing is the gas tank there of Gilbert Burns. You have to question it. He's gotten gassed in some fights. Can he go 5 rounds? If this gets into the 4th and the 5th round, it could get ugly for Gilbert Burns if he runs out of gas versus Usman, because his gas tank is impeccable.
Absolutely.
I see that happening.
I see that as well, especially against a guy like Kamaru Usman. Not only is his boxing improving, as we've seen, but his cage wrestling is bar none some of the best in the UFC and in MMA right now. I mean, look, Kamaru Usman carried the flag for the Blackzilians on the ATT versus Team Blackzilians Ultimate Fighter. He's been undefeated since. He's a great fighter. I don't see Gilbert Burns having anything for him. I don't believe that his ground game is going to be able to nullify that top heavy wrestling that Usman has. I don't even see the fight going to the ground that much. I see a lot of it being spent on the cage, and I see a lot of in the later rounds, Usman starting to open up and try to finish that fight. I'm going with Kamaru Usman by decision, but I would not be surprised if there was a late stoppage in the 4th or 5th round,
like we saw with Covington. I feel like it's going to be the same thing with Covington, where Burns might have some flashes early on, but Usman might just let him gas himself out, like Jack was saying. So I think that's going to happen. I'm looking at a 4th round finish here, maybe 3rd, like a late 3rd round finish. I really think that Usman's is gonna prove a point this week. Usman's another guy where it's like, even with Woodley, it was the same thing, where it's like as soon as he slips up once, people are going to start taking respect away from him. And Woodley, the thing about Woodley is Woodley created those doubts. Like, he was always like, oh, nobody respects me. Where I think Usman, like, it respects himself so much, he wants everybody to think the way he does. You know,
he's a professional. He's a professional. He's a
fan,
strong fighter. And Usman is one of those guys that we've seen trends before in the UFC and in MMA, where might not be the most likable, might not gravitate with all the fans, but at the end of the day, he's got the skills that pay the bills. So you can't lie about that. I don't think there's going to be as much boxing as there was in the Covington fight. I see the first, 1 to 3 rounds being a lot of cage wrestling, bit of a slower paced fight. And then perhaps Usman's going to open up afterwards when Trevor Whitman tells him to click that explode button. Maybe
the same type of fight that he had against Masvidal, where he's giving those against the cage, where he's giving those body shots, those stomping the toes, just taking, like, being different to Burns. And I think that's what might struggle him. But let's give respect to Burns. If it goes to the ground, I mean, I think we can say that it's not an easy fight for Usman either, regardless of his wrestling acumen.
Yeah, I mean, he is such a good Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy.
Unbelievable.
Burns. I mean, he was a world champion a couple times over as well. And to be honest, I've seen on twitter.com people saying that, like, Usman's going to starch him right off the bat in like 1st round knockout. I can't possibly see that happening. I think Gilbert Burns is a worthy opponent. I think he earned this shot, and I think he gives him a hell of a fight, but I do think Usman comes away with it.
Whoever says that is disrespecting both athletes, because Burns isn't a guy who gets tagged, and Usman isn't. I mean, if they're saying that about Usman, that means they don't know Usman, because Usman's not the type of guy to come out in the 1st round and just knock you out. Like, it's not him. He's going to grind you down until you just can't do it anymore and break your fucking face.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? That's what he's going to do.
Yeah, I agree with that. Do we see Gilbert Burns maybe low key dropping himself after a punch from Usman to kind of in a way be
you think that would happen?
Guard a little bit? Do you see him pulling a Nate Diaz where he gets dropped, but really he just wanted McGregor to jump on top of him? I don't see that happening. I'm just throwing it out there for conversation.
I think Burns in the camp that he's in they've focused on striking so much that he's believing how good of a striker he is. How good as he wants to be. I'm not taking anything away from him.
I don't think that's a smart game plan to go in there and try to strike with Usman.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see. I mean, we'll see, and I'm super pumped. I can't wait to watch it. If we do a live, maybe I'll jump on for a bit. I got to work till midnight, so it's gonna be tough.
Oh yeah, we'll be doing a live stream.
There you go. That was Tarps Off MMA. Adam, unanimous decision. Jack Gotsell of Tarps Off, and me, myself, Terry Tam at Hot Sauce Sports. Adam, where can they find you?
At the unanimous decision MTL on Instagram, at Adam Caplan on Instagram and Twitter. And another thing also is if you're a hockey fan, go and check out Get the Puck Out. It's back up and running with Tarps Off Sports. That episode was a banger, and I'm not even a hockey guy, so big ups to Jack and Chris for getting that done. And you know, like they're supposed to say in Montreal, go Habs go, and forget about Boston.
I actually, just to jump on that, is I was a Get the Puck Out fan before. Like I was a follower of Kyle. I listened to Kyle and Chris, and it was, and then I didn't even know you guys that started back up again. So I'm pumped to have it. I'm gonna have that in my repertoire for sure.
Yeah, we got the first episode back.
Good. All right, boys, good stuff. See you soon. Peace.